Call this meeting of the Moore County Board of Elections to order. Please join me in standing and saying the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. We'll begin now. We're following with the roll call. Please state your name and indicate whether you have any conflict of interest with matters that are before us this afternoon.
Holly Powell, no conflict.
Martin Carpenter, no conflict.
Bob Howell, no conflict.
Antoinette Kelly, no conflict.
Susan T. Adams, no conflict.
Thank you. We're all here. And the first item on the agenda for the business part has to do with the board's public comment policies and procedures. And Ms. Dixon, if you could maybe give us a synopsis on where we are for the.
So no one signed up for public comment?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So you just want me to explain the policy? Or?
Right. So you sent that to us.
I
as
did.
an attachment earlier, and
Yes, sir. And the reason why is just I know that sometimes with the early voting plan for a presidential, sometimes things can become a little heated. And so I just wanted people to be respectful of the board and of each other. And it is posted on our website. It is posted when people come in to sign in. And I'm going to do my best to remember that during our regular meetings to send it out on the regular, that if anyone does want to speak, that the board does have certain guidelines that needs to be followed. And that is to come prior to the meeting to sign up. If they want their comments to be entered into the official meeting, they need to leave a copy here for us as well. Also, that the board doesn't have to answer anything at that time. They can just listen to the grievance or statement that is being made, and they can either come back to it, or if they choose to answer it at that time, they can. And so this way, people just know that what is expected of them when they come. Now, like I said, so far, we haven't had any issue with this board and with our party chairs. It's been really great. Maybe this might have been a PTSD moment, I don't know. But I just wanted to make sure that people were aware that we do have things in place with this board when it comes to public comment, when certain issues arise that some people do want to speak out. Now, we're not just saying that sometimes it may be that somebody may need to hear something that the whole board is saying, and they may want to ask a question, but I will leave that up to the board if that's what they decide. But in the beginning of the meeting, they know what's expected of them, what needs to be done, and then they can go from that point on.
great. Thank you. I think that will be helpful as you say, as we approach the general election, and when the activity and interest becomes greater. We hope we want everybody to participate in a reasonable and lawful way. But I think you're right. Making sure that when you make your announcements for with the agenda and when the meetings are going to be held, if you reference the policy, and I'll try to in future remember that. Just briefly, it's a fairly posted on the flyer back there, comprehensive policy, and I wouldn't recommend that I or anybody else read the whole thing every time, but maybe a synopsis on a regular basis for folks who are paying attention, just to establish the ground rules from the beginning. Are there any questions for clarification or comments from the board? All right, sounds good. Thank you. Now, at our last meeting, Ms. Dixon presented us with a nice booklet with several options, both in terms of the dates and times for early voting and a review of, I believe it was 5 candidate sites or 4.
Or, sir.
Okay. And let's see, Ms. Dixon, I'll give it back to you to give us an overview. I don't know if you want to start with the places and then the calendar, either way that you'd like to do it.
Well, I'll do the, each site, and then we can go down to the proposal ones that I gave. So I did it a little bit different this time, just to give the board a visual of everything, of the different sites. So this time, the executive director sent out an email wanting our early voting plans a little bit earlier. It was suggested that we give each site 20 days or so to be noticed, to have their responses back. The board already knows that we do use the Agricultural Center as our in lieu of site. So I just gave you the mapping, how that is, where the tents, where we normally put the tents at. And so I gave you what that looks like. For the first proposal site was the town hall, Bath. I gave you the radius of the different areas that the town hall and the Moore County ag buildings both encompass. They kind of they overlap each other. Basically, they pull in the same amount of voters at the same time. They do leave out the lower portion of the county, like the Pine Bluff area, when it does come to using that site.
Mhm.
I gave you the setup as far as what the building plan looks like. With that location, by the time we put in our equipment and observers, because I do believe that we will have observers, each party is allowed to have at least 2 in and 1 observer at large, which makes it up to 3. It's going to take up a lot of our spacing, which was a concern for voters. I gave you the mapping that showed the buffer zone, and this is one of the precincts where a tent, we had an issue, and Marty was on the board at that time. We had an issue with a candidate who had put a sign out to mark that location for a tent and left, and someone else had put a tent up there because it's really not a big location for multiple tents. And so this is a site that we can't put tents because multiple tents cannot be placed there. And even in this past election, but the primary, we were having calls from candidates who wanted to put tents up, and we could not have multiple tents up. And I believe that that's going to become an issue for the general, because they're going to want to put tents up and they can't have tents in this location. It's a very limited space for tents. The parking is a concern because, the police station is on the other side, so they will be there. Usually the town clerk is there as well, but there is like no other overflow.
Which slide are you talking about?
Bath.
Yes.
Oh, that's.
Yes, ma'am. I'm going in order of the
Okay,
sheet right
okay.
here. I'm
I
sorry.
was just confused.
I'm sorry. So yes, ma'am. So for Bath, so that was my concerns for the Bath location, and that's what I wanted to share with the board. So now I'm on site number 2, which is the Pinehurst Community Park Center. The Pinehurst Community Park, or Cannon Park, it does get the lower portion of like Pine Bluff area a little bit more better. That's not a word, but I just made it up. The only problem with, I know that's a heavy area. Pinehurst would really come out to vote in that area. The only problem, and when you look at the design of Pinehurst, they were willing to give us the community room, and they were willing to give us the arts and the crafts room. The problem I have with that is the direction and the flow. You're going into two separate rooms. You would either have to bring people into the community room, check them in, come out into the lobby, walk them down the hall to come into the arts and the crafts room to let them sit and vote, and then to come out of that door and then come down the walk to get back out to their cars. My concern was they're having a ballot in their hand walking down the hall. And that is scary for me because depending on what they're doing in the gymnasium, and I do believe that at that time they're going to be having a pickleball tournament, I do not want somebody just wandering off with ballots in their hand because the community room is tight. We used it one time before. It's very tight. There was a long line. We were having to redirect traffic because if people were coming in, we couldn't tell if they were there for curbside or if they just got in the line. And so somebody was having to walk the whole line to say, are you here for curbside? Or are you here for parking, and kind of direct? So you need multiple people doing extra jobs that we did not create for that location. Then you're going to need people just to monitor the halls, just to make sure that somebody doesn't divert in another direction with ballots. And that's a concern for me as far as security with the ballot. We keep track of everything that we do. And that's just, I'm afraid that somebody could just get distracted being in that hallway and a ballot could come up missing. And I just don't want that.
Now, I agree with you. I remember last time we used just the community room, and there were long lines
And we,
all the time. And so the gym is not available.
no, sir, they wouldn't give us the gym. And then with the gym as well, we would have to put down a floor covering. And I'm gonna be honest, no one in this general area supplies a floor covering. There's not a business around here. So if anybody wants to do that, you would make a killing. There is not a business close by that does that. The closest business to us is actually up in the Greensboro area. When I was looking into doing a floor covering for the West Southern Pine Center, just to do half of that gym for a floor covering was going to cost me $8,000. For them to come to put it down, and it was the tile sheet because they didn't have the rollout, and I was lucky to ask a church to let me use their rollout for a fee. It was the connecting board to put down on the floor. It was going to cost me $8,000, and that was at a discount of $8,000.
No, I agree with you on the two different rooms there. That is not going to work. How many voting stations did we have the last time we were there in the community room?
Two.
2 voting stations was all? We can't do any more than that.
No, sir, you
So
cannot.
there's the,
You can only do 2. Annie was, she worked it. She had 2 check-ins with the ballot table in the back. We had the 1 help desk, and then we had the DS200 like as close to the door as possible. And we still had to put observers in there as well. And we have to put the observers in a location where they can see and hear. And that was like right by the door. And so it was very tight in that room. So that was the solution from the community center because they will not offer the gym. Okay, so any more questions concerning them?
no, I agree that this next election, we're going to need more voting stations, any of the locations we have to handle that. And 2, that's why I was trying to remember about it. There were always lines
Very good.
there.
And like I said, you're actually creating jobs that we normally don't have because you're having to keep people away from the door because they were blocking the door. And so that's why we were going to use the side. but you're still gonna be blocking because, to come in, you gotta line them where so that's the park tent benches come this way to make them go into the door, around, and come right back out. So you're gonna have lines. You're just gonna have lines there. Pinehurst is gonna do the lines.
And there was no option for them, of course, you're talking about covering the floor, which becomes another issue, to be able to use the gym. The gym would be an ideal location. We do it at the rec center, the Southern Pines Rec Center, we're in there. Do we cover the floor there?
The Southern Pines.
At the Boys and Girls Club there?
No, sir. No, I've never had to cover the floor. But I asked about their flooring because now I'm in the habit of just asking. They didn't say that I needed to cover. However, since we're on that subject, we're going to the Southern Pines Recreation Center now. We used to use the big gym to the left.
Yeah, the big gym, full court.
Yes, they have asked us to move to the gym to the middle now, not to use the big gym anymore.
I'm not familiar with the middle gym. I have to look at it and see.
And so they're asking us now to use the middle gym because they still want to be able to continue to do their activities there now while we're still there using the facility. As you can see with the map, the radius, it covers a little bit outside of the Moore County line, but it covers that southern part of Moore County. The buffer zone on this one is showing where it would be at if we were using the big gym. But it would actually be shifted over to more up to the middle with that buffer zone. This is another location as well that cannot use tents because the issue came down to tent people actually using handicap in the parking itself, blocking parking to use the spacing for tents. And so we had to not allow tents in this location as well. So tents are not available in this location. There is a sizing map to show you how we used to use half of the gym that was located to the left, and now we're in the middle. From what I was told, the Boys and Girls Club is in that front section of the building, and they still do have some type of access. So we're actually going to have to like block off the door so they can't come through, direct them to go around because they're used to going through that front to the middle gym to do their activities, and we're going to have to block off the front door. I don't have to cover the gym in this case. They do drop off in the morning for their kids though, in the morning, and they do drop off for their kids in the afternoon. So right, if you look at where the buffer zone map is, they park buses in that buffer zone area right there. So I am concerned about that because I do remember in the municipal when we went to go drop off equipment, I know that I did it. I had to park up on the incline because buses were right there to get our stuff in. And so voters are just going to have to be careful of the buses coming through.
And I'm looking at this picture and I see Public Works Way. I mean, can the buses drop off there? There's got to be entrances. There's cars parked in this overhead photo. I would assume that there's entrances on the back side that could be used instead of in the front where all the voting issues are.
That's the back of the building. I don't know what's in the back of the building. I know that's the front of the
There's got to
building.
be an entrance or two for the kids to go in and out. I mean, I don't know why they would just be restricted. I'm afraid that any place we look coming up with this election, there's going to be places that don't want us there because they've got things going on. But this is an important enough election. You know, we may have to use, I guess, the authority we have to for more county properties, et cetera, if need be, to utilize some of these. Because I mean, you're showing we've got problems everywhere.
No, we don't have problems everywhere. Hold on, I'm not finished. Well, this building is not, this is not county, this is municipal.
people are gonna want tents to be able to,
Oh, I know
yeah.
that.
So at the moment now, I'm also trying to figure out,
Can they not put tents down here in this green area?
That's actually a drainage, underneath the bushes you're talking
Well,
about?
between the bushes and the cars in the green area towards the bottom of the map. It looks like grass.
I remember right when there were tents there at one time, one of the elections, and they're there for that entranceway, you see a little walkway.
It all
Painted.
depends on where the voters park, and a lot of times, if the voters are parking in that first parking lot or on the side, most of the time, they're trying to get to, they're trying to get to the closest parking spot to get to them. I'm not quite sure what's under there or not.
But there's a lot of parking down there at the bottom, and then across the street is parking as well. I mean, could be no perfect solution here. We could even block off that so you can't park there in front, which would allow the tents to go up just outside that 50-foot zone.
But we can't put tents there because that first parking row right here, you're gonna have your curbside and you're gonna have your,
No, I'm not talking about where the 50-foot is. The 50-foot covers that parking. You can see there's two white lines.
Mhm.
The little walkway there
No,
in that
what-
picture. That to me is where I think I saw
That's a
tents in
hill.
the past.
that's actually a hill of the driveway going up. Even though you look in here, it looks like flat land, it's
I'm
not.
talking about right there by the facility going inside, not up on the other side where the parking is, where that little hill is.
What are you talking about?
You would drive over it.
Point to me, because I don't know what you're talking about.
Because I think there were tents there before.
Where?
Tents, I think, I believe, they've been right in this area, right in here.
On the sidewalk?
Yeah, right in this area, I believe there were tents at some point in time for one of the elections.
I have to ask Andy. He's talking about on the sidewalk, Andy. Well, no, then you're gonna be in the 50-foot buffer.
No, that's outside the 50-foot buffer.
No, that's what I said. Remember, the 50-foot buffer is now shifted because we're in
Okay,
the middle.
then you slide it, do they have to have those 6 parking spots right there? Do they have to have all 6 of those parking spots? I mean, can they give up a couple of them for the tents to go in?
So you wanna take up parking to put tents down?
There's only 2 spots right there. There's like 40 spots there at the bottom. There's spots on the other side. It looks like there's there's like 10 parking spots. When you first pull into the left, there's 10 parking spots. Then you head down to where you could drop people off to vote or do the motor voter. But there's space there on the sidewalk or whatever for people. They're going to walk that direction for the tents. The tents have been there in the past. I'm almost sure at one of the elections, the tents were there.
They have been. They were not in the first primary this year.
No, this was back before you guys came on board, yeah.
Even since I think that in the municipal elections, maybe they were there. In any event,
It seems like between all the parking spaces you can see to the right and below and that green area, as long as you had some handicap spots up near the building for people to park who are handicapped, want to go inside, you could give up the other parking spaces that are on the lower
Or make
side.
these handicapped, then you give up, and the tents are gonna be right in this area
Well,
right
they
here.
can't be there because this person's going to slide
Well,
here,
then you slide it over, right.
but they could be here.
They could be down here.
They could be down again in this green area.
I don't know if the people are gonna wanna pass through. So the tents have gotta be somewhere in this area. And I think right here becomes the spot, especially if you move this to the right, then the tents could be right here. You're gonna give up those 6 parking spots, but are they gonna be that important for their operation during
Yeah.
that 17 days? Those 6, when I see like 40 parking spots on the bottom side,
So that's what I'm trying to figure out. Are you saying that you're trying to take up the parking to put tents in parking spots?
there's like 6
Yes.
parking spots right there. We could take maybe 2 of those or 3 of those.
I wouldn't do that. I'm not trying to be funny when I say
No, but they're
that.
right, there's a bunch of other parking spots.
That means you would take parking spots away from Bass to do the same thing. Why would you take parking away from people?
To put the tents up, maybe take 2 parking spots and put the tents up, and I still see probably 40 down here, and I see 9 or 10 right here, so I'm seeing 50 parking spots available, and then across the street for the people that can walk.
Okay, but
Like
you're
parking
looking at it as a flat plane and it's not It's
I'm
not.
not talking about the hill.
Okay, so here you're talking about this right across the street, right here, correct? You talking about these parking spots right here?
These parking spots right here. Why couldn't we use like right here? Let's say this slides over to here.
So
And
this
these
is gonna be your curbside. One of these is gonna be your
I thought
curbside.
curbside was down here.
No.
Because we're gonna be using this gym.
So this, everything shifts. So this 50-foot buffer now becomes a 50-foot buffer
Okay,
this way.
I'm going to be
So
like this.
now, this is, everything shifts. So this is gonna be one of these is gonna be your handicap, one of this is gonna be your curbside.
So
So
all
that
of these
means-
parking spots gonna go away this.
I know that's gonna happen
This
there.
way, but then the buffer for the curbs.
If you're gonna have to pull in.
Because in the back, you're gonna have to put your poll workers in the back to keep the front open.
You've got all these spots down
Well, or you're gonna have your poll workers park way up here.
here. Or they can park across the street over here. There's parking over in this area.
I mean, I'm not worried about the four.
But-
I'm worried about wherever.
I don't know.
I'm just,
But
they're
I'm just
gonna
saying,
want,
you're
they're gonna
trying
want
to,
tents. Everybody's gonna want
but
tents.
even if you try to put tents here, you're not gonna have enough tents.
You're not
Okay.
outside the 50-foot zone. That's the problem. Because the door is it right here, right here? That's the door.
Oh, that's the door. Hold
Do
on,
you
let me
know
look
what
at the
I'm
map.
saying? So, there's not a
This
good
is the door.
Okay, so
Oh,
we
this
need-
is the door.
We needed another 50 foot here to show.
This
since we're
is the
doing this.
door.
We were basing it on this, this is it right
That's-
here.
No, so this is your door right there. Your door's
Yeah,
in
but here's
this.
the gym. This is the gym you're talking about, which is this one right
Okay,
here.
so this is the door comes this way. This is the door.
Yeah,
and
so
this
this
corner.
slides
So your
20
50,
feet this way.
yes, your 50-foot
I'll
slides
bet it
all
still
the
doesn't
way
meet it,
over.
yeah. I guess we need to,
I can get her to give me a newer map to show.
based on
I thought she
where the
did.
50 foot would be, since we're gonna use this.
Southern Mines Recreation Center.
I thought she sent one. I have to see, but that whole 50 is gonna shift all the way over because the secondary, okay, so this is the secondary. Oh, if you look at this one, this is where the 50-foot is at that back door. Now you're coming all the way up here now. This is
Okay.
the entrance. So on this map, you see it where it's the white square piece, where the two vehicles are in that first corner. Your 50 is all the way moved up that way now. So that whole parking spot becomes that 50.
I need to go look at it again. I haven't been there for a while, just to kind of get a visual myself.
It would be easier to visualize if we had a picture of the front of the building and this was redone with the buffer where it needs to be.
I don't think she heard you.
Where it needs to be. I
Well,
heard her.
because you're saying it's gonna move down.
Yeah, it is. I thought she sent it to me. Hold on.
It's gonna be.
Yeah. And now she's saying that the entrance is right in here. So over here, the entrance is right over in this area, right there. And she's saying that this is where
You
the
know what you're talking about, right?
curbside is gonna be right in here. In the past, it was way back here. Now it's this area. So curbside's gonna be down here right now, okay. Curbside is in there, the tents can be here. You're walking from here, and I need to visualize this and see what the tents, of course, if you're parking here, then you're rental the tents along here. See the builder comes. Tents can go here or on the, usually I need to visualize this and see what's here. I have to look at it and see. When I go home, I'll drive there, and look at it. Let me drive there. Check it out.
She sent it to me.
I mean, right here maybe, outside the 50 foot, you'll get one tent there, one tent there.
This is just a regular.
Well, you get your tent, and then they're
And
gonna
it's
fight
first
for
come,
your
first
tents. Yeah.
So when they call the complaint, I'll give them y'all's number.
So who's gonna call the complaint?
They're gonna
They're
complain.
only gonna be
Because you
able,
can only
if
have
they
two
fit,
tents.
they're only gonna be able to fit 2 tents in.
And that she's
One
saying,
on the-
it's gonna be one on each side, like one here and one there.
Unless you take the parking spots.
No,
Well, we're
no,
not gonna
that's-
take, we're not taking
Parking spots. That's why we had to
The
stop them.
residents of Moore County would eat us alive if we took up parking spots. I mean, voters do not wanna walk, and they do not wanna walk from all the way over there to a voting center.
I'll be honest with you. I mean,
That's why
I
we
think
had
the
to
voters
stop.
of Moore County would be upset if you took parking spots that close to put tents that they don't like. A majority of voters do not like to walk past those tents.
Look, here's the question. Maybe one of the things we should talk about first, instead of the individual possible sites, is how many sites do we think we want?
Wow,
Because-
that's up to you. I mean,
Well,
I was just going over what I got from
because-
each one.
Because talking about the individual sites is kind of premature before we decide how many we want to have. Because the people in Moore County who want to vote, number one, want it to be convenient. Yes, they want to be able to park close, but they also don't want to wait in a long line because there's so few places open. So we have to find a happy medium. So maybe we should have a general discussion of how many sites do we think we want? In the last general election, correct me if I'm wrong, we had 4.
That was because of the COVID, yes. That was the only reason why.
I'm sorry, because what?
COVID,
What difference does that make?
because you've never had 4 before. That was the only time Moore County or any county has ever had over that amount of early voting sites.
We can't say any county.
No,
Many counties have lots more than 4.
But I'm just saying, and I've done 2 counties, and the only reason why, that's why I say that is because during 2020 in the primary general election, we were told that we had to have more than one site so that we could space out so we weren't on top of each other. And so that's why the state recommended that for so many voters, we had to have so many early voting sites. So for Hope County, at that time, I had 34,000 voters. I was recommended to have 3 sites. For Moore County, for every 10,000, I'm sorry.
I think it was 20,000.
For every 20,
20,000
for every 20,
registered voters.
you had to have so many sites. So that's why it ended up being 4 here.
And in the previous general election, how many did we have?
2.
2.
Yes, ma'am.
And what were they?
It's always been the ag, and then it's always shifted. You've used the Aberdeen place, you've used the Douglas Community Center before. Y'all used like all kinds of different places. Some of them are not even open
Well,
anymore.
and I think the other sites is when they had more flexibility with the hours.
In the hours. And so with some of these places, you could have a site open and you could do it for like 3 or like 4 or 5 days. And you could do it from like 12 to 5. Like
You didn't
you're
have to have the same.
you didn't have to have it open as long. Like during your lunch period of time when everybody was out running, you could do it that time.
Now you have to have, every site has to be,
So any
Same
site,
hours.
yeah, any site that is your secondary site that's beyond business hours has to be open from 8 to 7:30. That's just, you can't get beyond that time frame. When 2020 came, you could petition the state and say, which Hope did get out of not having so many sites, we only did 2. You could petition the state and say it's not recommended or required for us to have so many compared to the guidelines that the state was giving me. Hope was lucky because the state wanted us to have 3 and we didn't have to have 3, we had 2. Moore County wound up having 4. And that's what happened. And so I'll just go straight to, with here for the proposal, I only proposed 2 because Moore County, so for our ag building, we can open that one, we can get all 4 spaces, it opens it completely up. You have enough check-in stations, help registration stations, sit down, parking, curbside, where you don't really have that line. And so everybody knows the space. I mean, this space has been here forever, and it's like right across the street. It's perfect. The Aberdeen Recreation Center, it's the same thing. We have a building, a space bigger than this one where you can put in more check-in stations. We have the curbside, we have the parking. They can put the tents out there. I lost my train of thought. Tents, parking. We can put in more check-in stations. We can put in more registration. The help desk. It's right there off of US 1. It covers all that area down at the base. You still get the Pinehurst, you still get Pine Bluff, Foxfire, West End. You still get all those people, anybody coming down one. You get that location. Those are your two biggest sites where everybody is familiar with. And that's why I was like, we used it before. People are familiar with it and everybody can get to it. Like you can spot them. Like if you don't spot that one-on-one, something's wrong. So that was my recommendation. Another reason for recommendation was because of the simple fact that, 7:30 going home, it's right there. People coming from Richmond County, coming into Moore County, it's right there. They can get to it before it closes, because we're there to 7:30. We're trying to get out, so people coming out, they can hit it. So it's like you can get to it without any no issues. And like I said, you have the area where everybody knows where the tent area is. We can probably expand the tent area on the side, because no matter which way a person goes in that area, either on the side of the park or on curbside, 10 people can get to them. They can't dodge them.
So it looked,
They're going to get to them.
in your details for that site, the one possible negative, or at least it's a concern that some of the other places didn't, is that we would need floor mats. I believe that there was a.
Well, yes. And what happened was, that's just me now, but Aberdeen has this type of flooring, and we try to make sure, because our people are there for such a long period of time, we try to provide like comfortable chairs. And sometimes with the rolly chairs, they have a tendency to dig into the waxing of the floor.
Gotcha.
So I have mats already, and for any site that I can lay down.
This is not like the issue of having to cover the
No.
entire floor space. Okay.
I can use I have
Mats underneath the
I have carpet,
Right.
and then I have the plastic chair covering, like the floor mats, without the sticky part, the little nodules that I can put under as well. If I have to order more, if we expand it, my housekeeping supervisor, he's really good at letting me know which ones I do need to get to protect the floor as well. But I don't have to cover the whole entire floor. It's just where my workers sit, because of the type of chairing that we use, just to protect the floor. We did try it out with the agriculture building this go around, and that was the best he ever saw the floor this go around. So it's just now, I'm just mindful that any location that we go, just to protect the floor
Sure.
now. It's just a habit. So I just want to be able to make sure that we're not mistreating people's property. So that's just me.
So what you've really done this time is if those two locations, because of their size, you're going to have expanded check-in
Yes, sir.
and expanded voting booths.
Yes.
And that would, there's parking at both of those locations.
Yes.
So that would allow a large number of people to come in, and not that if you've got 10 spots and there are people to vote, and let's say, 6 check-in stations, or however you want to do it. Do you have a check-in station per polling station or per voting booth?
So I know the last time she had, how many, you had 3 check-in stations last time?
I think I had 4 set up, we only needed to use 3.
No, so we usually have 3 set up, and 1 so she usually has 3, and we have 1, like if it gets busy, we can pull it out, but it's right there. And so, and then we always have 2 help desks.
I think in 2016, Kim said that they did have 6 check-ins.
Okay, so you can expand it all the way to
You can,
6.
there's enough room where we can put 6.
So the real thing is checking in. You need enough check-in stations, because that's the time
That's the
consuming.
first bottom line.
Yeah, once you go in, you got the ballot, boom, boom, boom,
Oh, yes.
and a minute later you're done, but it's the check-in that takes time.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
And that right, okay.
just have one other question about the map. So if we look at this map here with the Ag Center and Aberdeen Parks and Rec, the thing that kind of stands out to me is we don't have anything to the northwest.
Mhm.
And I don't know what the population is there.
Wooded.
I'm sorry.
It's very wooded. So I deliver in that area on the day before election, so I know. It's very wooded up there. They did try to do an early voting site up there at one point in time. There is a community building that the county does own. It didn't turn out very well. Those are my election day people. They just like to come out on election day. They're not really big on early voting up there. And so, the time that they did try to put an early voting site up there, they barely used the location. And that's why we haven't been back up there since.
Is there fairly good coverage on election day for where the precincts,
Oh, yes,
voting
sir.
places?
They're very loyal to their election day sites. So they would rather go to their election day sites than come out to early voting. Even when we do early voting at Carthage, I think the only time they may come down to Carthage to do early voting is when the Pick and Pig is open. And that's true, when they're having lunch, they may come down and they'll do it. But other than that, they're not, they will wait to go to their election day site and they'll vote then. And Susan, yeah, she's been,
All of that is true. You can ask someone from up there, have you done your voting? Well, it's not election day. That's the response that you get.
That's the mentality.
So hearing all that is very helpful for me because the only general election I worked in Moore County was the last one, and I worked at Bass. And we were busy. I mean, it wasn't as busy as the other sites, but it was busy. I think you've identified 2 sites that are almost perfect for what we need. So the question that I have, and you say we only had 2 in the past. In my experience, we had 4. The other sites sound like they all have issues. So, and they don't fill the gap of looking at the map, being in an area where we don't already have a site. Do we really need another site in Southern Pines? So that's kind of my question to all the board members, because that's what we're looking at with the other sites that were on here that seem to have some issues.
So in other words, not for geographical coverage, but
Well,
to
it doesn't
release
really
the.
help with the,
Exactly,
I mean,
but
it
for the-
does make it easier for the people in Southern Pines, not to
Yeah,
go to
that's
Aberdeen
not
or
a
the
major
Ag Center.
thing, so, but more a question of having, just for numbers and
And,
to take some of the pressure off of,
and
I
maybe
guess it would be the Aberdeen.
make it easier for the people in that concentrated area to get to a voting location.
The concentrated area of Southern Pinehurst.
Yeah,
and also the people from Pinehurst would
yeah, and
come under
Pinehurst.
too, yeah.
So I mean, do we feel like we need that 3rd site? And are there other alternatives to the ones that you've talked about here?
I think the reason why we had looked at the Southern Pines Recreation Center, because we didn't want to slight anybody since we had just came from the West Southern Pine,
For Southern Pine Center.
thank you. We didn't want to slight anybody since we had not gone back to that area. So that is the reason why we had chosen a Southern Pines Recreation area. We didn't want to slight anyone. But saying all that, it's just that area is really congested. It's really congested. And I think with the site that we just came from, I think it has great potential. It's just for a general election and the magnitude of people, that place wouldn't be able to handle the magnitude of people. It still has some kinks that it still has to just work out. So we, like I said, we just didn't want to slight anyone. That is why we chose another Southern Pines area. But for me, like I said, the two sites are big enough to accommodate everything that we need for everyone without a lot of wait time. And so,
Each of those are going to be, my question is expandable, which you say they kind of are. You can add, you have one extra terminal, maybe you got three, you can do the fourth if you need it. Maybe you have a couple of extras like at the Ag Center. If we just do two, we may get a lot of volume there. We may need 6 check-in stations. Aberdeen may be the same thing. I look for this to be a very busy election in November, and the check-in stations are the bottleneck.
and your help desk is your overflow. So if your help desk isn't doing like same day registration, or if they're not doing a provisional, we do pull people over to the help desk as well to help check in. So that's our backup as well, is the help desk. They do help to get the volume down as well.
Now, the next question would be, can you staff a third or a fourth
Well,
early voting site?
and that's another thing. So this is funny. So, we've had 92 across the street. We sent out, the board saw the list, and I've had people drop out from working just across the street. And so people always say that they want to work, but then when it comes closer to the time to work, people will drop out. Or I don't know what they think early voting is. That is the most busiest time to work. Sometimes election day isn't dependent on the site, because you have some sites that are more active than others. And so my concern is when you have 2 sites, it's easier for, if I have a day where the 2 sites, everybody's staff, I got extra, I can call somebody and say, hey, somebody didn't show up. Do you want to work at the other site? And they'll be like, yes. But when you're trying to staff 3 sites, where my extra coming from? I don't have anyone to pull. So then what happens is when we get the call from the site manager and they're like, normally one of us are at the sites to help open up, and we're looking at the names of the people that are supposed to be there, and they don't show up, and we're calling, and all of a sudden they're like, well, I'm not coming in. We don't have anyone to pull from. So that means either my staff, we have to go back out there and we have to help relieve, because if it's busy, then they can't get up to use the restroom. They can't get up to get anything to eat. We have help relieve before, and our people are like running to use the bathroom, running to get something to eat. And I really don't want to put my staff or my poll workers in that position where they can't eat or they can't use the restroom. Because the thing is, if I have a site that is not staffed, the state is not going to let me shut that site down. I can't. I'm not allowed to. Once I make it known that this is the sites that I am using, those are the sites that I have to use. I cannot shut it down. I can't. Basically, I have to find people. And if I go through my list and everybody was like, well, I wasn't expecting to work and I made plans, and I guess I can tell people, can you kind of keep your schedule open? That's nice, all well said and good. They may do it, they may not do it. Then I have to take, like I said, I have to take my staff, and we have to go out there and we have to keep that site going until that site closes. Because I already asked the question. I was like, well, what happens if I don't have enough people to staff a location and it's open? You got to keep it running.
And then you're getting into the problem of, at least from the experience of individual voters, they don't know what has happened to lead up to this problem. They just know, I tried to vote at this site and it took forever. And they don't know why there's not enough staff. Their experience is long lines.
Mhm.
So in other words, better is, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what I'm inferring is better to have 2 sites that have the capacity based on the physical facility and the ability to have adequate parking, check-in stations, all of the other components that you talked about. Staff them as fully as possible based on the pool of people that you have now, than to attempt to have better, fuller coverage with 3 sites, but not be able to adequately staff those sites, and therefore creating a bad experience for voters.
Because what will happen is my poll workers will see the lines and they'll get nervous, and that's when mistakes will happen because they're trying to get the line down, and then they'll start taking shortcuts. And one year, it wasn't even a presidential. We had to get on me and Annie had to get on some of our poll workers because they started taking shortcuts because the lines.
Mhm.
And we're like, no. We started walking through the lines. How you doing? We do apologize for the line. We're kind of short at this moment. If you just be patient with us, and that's the spiel. And they're like, oh, okay. It kind of took us a couple out. I think we were out there for like an hour and a half saying that spiel to them, and they were very patient with us. But when they see that, they get nervous because they're like, oh my God, a line, and they're trying to go fast. And I'm like, when you go fast, you make mistakes. When you go fast, you want to take shortcuts. And then that's when a lot more mistakes can happen. And I said, so we were having to slow them down, like just take your time. Tell them, right now, we're a little short right now. We're going to get to you as soon as we can. And some of it was with the curbside, and some of it was with the check-in, but we made it happen. But that's what happens when they see stuff like that, they want to rush. And like I said, that's when stuff didn't get numbered. So at the end of the day, it's taking us longer to balance because stuff didn't get numbered or stuff didn't get numbered right. And so, we don't want mistakes like that to happen.
What about a standby pool that you're actually paying? And like a 10%, there's, you basically use 24 people a day at your early voting sites, 12 in the morning, 12 in the afternoon, correct?
Yes.
Something along those lines?
Yes.
And so you basically, for 2 sites, you need 48 people. Have a pool of 10%, 5 people that are standing by, whether it's here, wherever they're getting paid, whether they go in or not. And if you need somebody, they get pulled and they go in. That way you've got a pool of people that are trained and ready to go if you need them.
But you will eat a budget up doing that. So.
Well, I
And I'm not,
understand.
and I understand what you're saying, but the thing is, when you call them and then they don't never show up.
No. They would. That's part of the deal. If you're going to get paid for sitting around, you're sitting around here or someplace else. That's not going to be at home and calling. They're going to be either extra at one of the locations, or you've got them here, and something says we need somebody at Pinehurst. Boom, they're off to Pinehurst. You're not calling them at the home.
Hey, me. What? Sounds so good.
No, and I'm used to that with the military. There's standbys. You got to have that. And I'm thinking that is an option. You pay them. Well, it's a little extra money, but I'd rather have that and actually get the job done than suddenly find people aren't showing up, something's happening, and now we've got the backup, and now we have problems.
Oh, that's a perfect room.
It's a thought.
I'm glad you just throwing it out there. I hear you.
Do we need a motion on?
I don't know.
I
don't know what happened.
I have a question. I want to go back to Pinehurst Community Center for a minute.
Yes, sir. Ma'am.
We can't, I know you said they said we could have the community room and the arts and crafts.
Yes, ma'am.
We can't have the program room or the wellness.
No, they didn't want us to go too far back. Just to stay towards the front. Because they're still having programs too. So
And they're not willing to give that up.
no, oh no.
I know the issue about the ballots is a concern,
Mm-hmm.
but you could have check-in in the arts and crafts. You give them their ATV, they go to the community room and the ballot table is there. Along with the booths.
So they don't get their ballot until they get into the,
Right.
The voting area.
yeah.
They check in and
Because the
check
ballot
in
table
one.
doesn't have to be where the check-ins are.
But you still have to have somebody monitoring to know when to send the next
Yeah,
group.
so somebody stands in the hall and sends them into the community room.
And I assume once they check in, they're still gonna wanna go vote, but they don't get their ballot till they get into the room with the voting booths. That's when they get their ballot. They're not hand carrying anything around.
Well, they're
Right.
hand carrying the ATV. because they
Okay,
have to
they have to,
take that to
they're
get
not,
the ballot.
yeah, but they don't get the ballot until they're,
I mean,
Okay,
it's just a
but
simple,
even with the, but see, we still, so what happens if they lose that ATV though?
walking down the hall.
You'd be surprised. I mean, I'm not trying to
Well,
be
you can
funny.
duplicate the ATV. You can reprint it.
No, and I'm gonna tell you why I say this. We had a situation where after a person came through, sometimes they don't even remember who that person was with that ATV to pull them back up to reduplicate it. So, I mean,
But the person goes back in and shows their ID again.
okay, so how many times will we count?
I mean, you really think they're walking, how far, 20 feet down the hall, they're gonna lose? the
So it's
ATV?
almost going from this room into the front room where Nicole is, like they're passing my office, going into the front room, where Nicole is with that ATV is with their hand. Now, what happens if they're walking and they're like, oh my God, I gotta use the restroom, and it's the same thing. We still have to keep account for everything that they do.
they got to be monitored, there's no stopping. You go from
There's no
A to
sound.
B, period.
Here's my question. So somebody loses their ATV. So now do they have to get back online and wait, or are they gonna cut the line? And you're gonna get angry voters. You see what I'm saying? So if they accidentally throw their ATV away from one room to another, the question is, so
We
do
don't
you
want
let them?
And you don't want anyone else picking it up and using it, because when they get to the ballot table, they don't have to recheck it's the right person's ATV. Anybody who shows up there with an ATV gets valid.
Yes, but I'm saying.
But the thing is, okay, so they show the ID at the check-in and they get the ATV. Are you gonna make them,
Show the ID. They go in to get
you
their
get the
ballot.
ballot?
You mean to make sure it's their ATV?
Mm-hmm. Because you gotta show ID, so that means you're like double ID in them.
Yeah, I would get in trouble with the state for that.
So
Let me
that,
ask a question.
I mean, to
No,
be,
never mind.
Then I want to ask my question.
Because to me, at least the community center is further away from Aberdeen. You know, because if we do Aberdeen, if we were looking at 3, and we did Aberdeen and Southern Pines Recreation, they're close to each other. I mean, look at the map. They're awfully close to each other. So,
So the point, again, the justification, I think, for that location, which is similar to the one in Pinehurst, it's less, yeah, there is a difference as far as the geography goes, but I think it's more a matter of numbers, of taking the pressure off of one of the 2 sites, or let's say the other site at Aberdeen, to spread it around. But we already had not a definitive discussion, but a thought that that a 3rd site is not necessarily desirable. And I can't believe I'm saying this, because in general terms, I would say more sites are better. But considering everything that I've heard today and the concerns about adequate staffing, so we have a good experience for voters, and then there's just a matter of getting out the vote, arranging for transportation, publicizing where the sites are, what other options there are for early voting, mail-in ballots, everything else that we can possibly do in order to increase voter participation. So what, are we trying to decide which of the 2 sites, Pinehurst or Southern Pines, is going to be better for a 3rd site when we're not even sure that we want to have a 3rd site? The last question that I would have, even though it sounded like I was going to bring that to a close, and Tawana, this is probably unfair too without giving you a chance to get these details. Do you have any clue for other counties of a similar, in North Carolina, similar population to Moore in a general election that's not COVID, whether it's characteristic to have 3 sites rather than 2? So I don't know what the relative population of Moore and Hogue is. You've got experience with Hogue County. Anybody?
I mean, that's different. For Moore County, I mean, for Hogue County, there's only 2. They have one closer to the Cumberland County side, because that's a military area. And they have their main one right down in the heart of Hope County. And like I said, they may have close to almost 40,000, but that's like a 30,000 difference
And what do
here.
we have?
74. But like I said, they don't have as big a, the main office has a smaller room. And that site, that room votes the biggest. Everything.
Okay.
And so that's why I said with the ag opening it up, you can get everybody in that room. And then with Aberdeen, with it being long this way, you can get everybody.
So I understand. I think, I agree.
So,
I think those are two good sites.
so
But for other counties that are
close.
with an approximate population of more, is it typical to have 3 sites?
I don't know.
We don't know. Okay, like I said, it was an unfair question, so
Okay.
Your Honor, I withdraw it. Okay, are there any, this is just for any further questions or clarification for the presentation?
The two, I understand the two, I think where you've got them set up, they're expandable, and I guess that's the key for me, that we could expand, let's say, to 6 check-in stations if needed at each one of those locations. If the lines are there, could we put up to 6 check-in stations? I believe 6 check-in stations, if it's a long line, we've probably done, and then you could shut them down if the line goes away, and then bring them back up again if you've got long lines. I just want to make sure that if people are there, they can get processed through at either one of those locations if we start getting a lot of people coming through.
Yes, because remember, like I said, your help desk is always going to be your backups.
But give me a number. In my mind, you're saying we have 3 plus 1.
Okay, so what sites are we talking about? Are you talking about?
Both sites, at both
Okay,
sites
so-
to expand.
And
At the ag, how many check-ins would you have at the ag in the Aberdeen?
I could probably fit 6 to 8. At Aberdeen, I don't know that I can fit 6. I could probably fit 3 or 4.
Only 3 or 4 in Aberdeen?
And that's still
Depends
within
on
these other.
which,
Yeah.
the other-
which way are you going?
Along the side. I could set it up differently than it has been,
So you coming into the door, are you going this way?
right along the
Oh,
wall.
right along the
So
wall.
I could probably fit 4. Like when you come in the front door, you would automatically come 1, 2, 3, and then there's another door
Okay.
down there. So there's an entrance here and an entrance down there. So it would have to be between the 2.
Oh, between the two. Okay. And then how many help desk?
I can fit 2 help desks down there. The thing is, the help desk, you have to understand, you're talking about, same-day registrations, you're talking about provisionals, those take time on the help desk.
So if she did the 4,
I could do that.
she could probably do the 4. And like I said, if her help desk weren't being utilized, then that would be the extra 2 for your check-in if they're not being utilized.
I just want to make sure that when all is said and done, that we have enough so that we don't get beat up after the fact. People waited an hour and a half on the early voting. Why didn't you have enough processing check-ins? Why didn't you have a 3rd site then?
Right.
So I'm saying, okay, how do we maximize the check-ins at each of these locations? I'd rather have them and not need them than need them and not have them. If we're going to stay with 2 sites.
Hour and a half.
That was just a suggestion. It
Oh.
wasn't it's just an example.
There were long lines, I'm just looking at the long lines at the Pinehurst Community Center.
Well, that
People were
room
unhappy.
was so tiny though, too.
Yeah, but the problem was a line. And at these places, if we don't have enough check-in stations, we may have a lot of people standing in line and moaning and groaning. Why don't you have more check-in stations? Why didn't you have a 3rd
But
site?
the reason why you had a line at Pinehurst, the room was small. You couldn't put hardly nobody in there, one.
And we were trying to tell people to go to other sites, like they wanted to go to
Okay.
Pinehurst because it was a new community center.
Yeah, they didn't want to go.
So, the Pinehurst, they just love Pinehurst, so.
Yes.
So what were the lines like in 2020 at the Ag Center for early voting?
Not bad.
They weren't terrible. I mean, the first day, yes. I mean, yes.
Oh, everybody had a line.
And I think that plays a lot of it, what day of the week it was, what time of the day it was. Things like, was it the beginning of early voting, was it the end of early voting? That all plays a factor into busyness.
But then
In
here's the
2020,
other-
you had 4 early voting sites. Now we're talking about 2, so the Ag Center may get more work. I just want to make sure we have the capability to expand to process people if need be. That's the only thing I'm concerned about. If we have to have extra 5 people, more computers, take them away from what we do on election day and bring them in. I just want to make sure we have the capability to process all these people if we're going to be at 2 sites. That's my only concern.
And you have to think still too, Marty, 2020, like I said, you had COVID, so everybody was scared. Everybody was trying to get it done and over with. Everybody had lines. I mean, usually the first beginning of early voting, it's not that bad because people are still learning their candidates. Now, once they learn their candidates, that's when it really does pick up. And like I said, when it comes to your registration people, your check-in people, who you have on your check-in is key. Because as long as they can hear what the name is and get them in and sitting down, that's your key. So that's why we have to make sure that the people that we choose, we put certain people on check-in. Hey, how you doing? Can I see your ID? Oh, okay, yeah, ballot, there you go. And that's key. So we make sure everybody that we choose, that we present before the board, we making sure that they know what they're doing. They're experienced people that know what they're doing to keep that line moving. And so we're not going to put somebody on there that they're like, hey, so I mean, if everybody comes at lunchtime, you're going to kind of have that line, and we're going to do our best, but it's not going to be no hour and a half. Then I need to go
Then it
down.
would be expandable. Too. You got those other computers out. We're getting a line. Let's activate the other 2 computers.
And we keep it up, so it's already up and waiting. So
Okay.
we always have it ready. So if something happens, our site manager will jump in and make it go.
Okay. I just want to make sure we're expandable if things get going.
You can also tell people there's going to be more check-in capability at the Ag Center.
Oh, yes.
So if you want to go somewhere where it might be faster, because I remember when I was working at Bass during the last election, you were telling people go to Bass because we didn't have we were constantly working, but we didn't have long lines.
Yes, and where I was at, I was like, you can go to the other side of Rockledge. Yes, we do. We will tell people if they don't mind to go to another site, if they don't mind.
But people are gonna have lines on election day at most precincts.
Yeah.
There are going to be lines.
You're right.
So I don't think it's a reasonable expectation that you're gonna go to any one site and not have any
Any
line.
line was right.
I'm like, you waiting for Walmart, Marty, stop playing.
I just want to make sure the expandable capability, that's all.
Yes, we do, we have it.
Any other questions for clarification? All right, is there a motion of one form or another regarding the locations of early voting sites?
I make a motion that we accept the Carthage Ag Center and the Aberdeen Parks and Recreation Center as our voting sites.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Any further discussion? Can't imagine. No, I'm sorry.
Don't tempt me.
All right. Thank you. All in favor of this motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That is unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, now,
we have to look at option 1 and 2.
the calendar. We have 2 proposals. And summarize it, but Ms. Dixon, give us an overview about how proposal 1 and proposal 2
Okay, so.
differ and what they cover.
So with proposal 1, of course, Monday through Friday, both sites, it's the 8 to 7:30. Both sites are all the Saturdays. And there were no Sundays included in the first plan. Proposal 2 was Monday through Friday, all 8 to 7:30, both sites. both sites, all the Saturdays, the 8 to 3, and there was one Sunday. That was the first Sunday, October 20th, either from 12 to 3 or 3 to 6.
All right, thank you very much. Any questions for clarification on those two proposals?
Is that the middle Sunday?
The
Just
first
the first
Sunday.
Sunday.
And I'll give you a reason why I said that. A lot of times when we're, as election staff, when we're doing, when we begin early voting, we kind of have like a bunch of energy. We're anticipating the day. And so we're really like ready. And so we can we can make that beginning of the early voting to that first Sunday and make it, and then we will have the break, because by that time we're like, who is catching us? And then we kind of feel ourselves we can feel the pull after it starts getting towards the tail end of it. And so then we will kind of need that break, because by that time we're coming to the end of early voting. We still have to do log training. And then we have to do, we have the meeting with the board at 5:30. And then we have supply pickup. We have the meeting with the board. We're doing, we go out on the route, and then we're there that night, helping the poll workers with equipment. Like they're calling, we're like trying to help them with, put it in this plug, do this, do that, and then we're back here the next day at 5:30. So we kind of need like that break. That's why we asked for the first Sunday, because we're more geared in the beginning than we are at
You want the break later?
later in the day. And so I talked with the staff, and they were agreeable with that. And so that's why I asked for the first Sunday.
Do we get that many voters on Sunday based on historical data?
No.
But
Oh.
this is gonna be a different election now.
Well,
And as a matter of fact,
and I have a question, well, not a question, a point with that. So the thing about the Sundays, and I know I'm different. So with Sundays, I did some research with the Sundays, and I know that with the Sundays, everyone believes that with the Sundays, we have to draw in certain people with Sundays. I do understand that. I had a conversation with someone, and it was very enlightening with the Sundays. For me, Sundays here have not been really a big pull unless someone actually kind of baits people to come out for the Sundays. That's what I've seen in both counties where I've worked. If someone is not putting something out there, a flyer to come out to do the Sundays, really Sundays is not a very big pull for Sunday voting here. With the Sundays here, it's just that I don't want to give up my Saturdays, to be honest. More people will come out on Saturdays, because I know for me, because I work a lot of my errands, I do on Saturdays. And if I'm out and about, I'm going to probably, I do voting on Saturdays anyway, because that's my last day to do it, because I can't get to my polling place. Like I said, with the Sundays, Moore County has began to just do Sundays. I've been doing Sundays in Hope County way before that time. It's never been, you have gotten basically almost to 200, but like I said, it's always been where you've had to bait people to come out. It's not been where people have just decided they wanted to come out without being baited to come out. Sundays have always been where we're trying to get a certain demographic of people to come out. And for me, I have an issue with that, because if we are here to establish voting for anybody to come out. We're not here to get a race, a party, or anybody to come out. I'm here for voters. A person is going to do what they want to do whenever they want to do it. And so I did a Sunday just to make everybody happy, but I don't believe in them because if a person wants to come out and vote, they're going to want to do it because this is how I look at it. If they want that iPhone, they go get that iPhone. If they want them Jordans, if they want them kids, if they want them New Balances, people go out and go after what they want. It's a shame that, we have to do this to get people to come out to vote. And I hope that it does get better as we continue to go out into the community. I hope it does get better, but I don't understand why we have to continue to do this here in Moore County. But if we're going to do the Sundays, then I just want the Sundays to be because the 3 to 6, most people, my daughters have to work in food service. A lot of times they have to work food service. They don't get off until later in the afternoon. So most people who work food service, they're getting off late. So if we're trying to catch them people, do it later. If we're trying to, or the 12 to 3, you got some that get off at a certain time, then let's catch them type of folks that need to get there, to get out there. But just a particular group of folks coming from church, I don't think that's right. That's not what we're here for. We got working people that can't make it sometimes because of that particular type of job. My daughter works that type of job. She has worked weekends. She's always working weekends. And so that's why I did a later time frame to catch people that couldn't probably come out between the hours that we're so used to doing, which was the 2 to 5. I mean, that's like brunch for some people at a restaurant. They can't come out. And so if we're going to do Sundays, the times it's going to be for everybody, regardless of who they are. And so that's just my reasoning for that. That's all.
Thank you for sharing your opinion with us.
Yes.
I'd like to advocate for that first Sunday to be open from 12 to 6. That catches the people who want to come straight from church early in the afternoon and people who find it more convenient to come later in the day. I really think 3 hours is not long enough. If you're going to bother to open, you might as well be open for a few more hours. You're going to catch more voters. So that's what I'd like to propose.
I guess the counter to that is that the voters will have 12 days of 11 and a half hours of voting, 3 Saturdays of 7 hours of voting. I don't think they need that extra Sunday, which, whether it's 3 hours or 6 hours, I'm just not sure. If they're not willing to come out earlier, I don't know if we're going to see them on that Sunday. I think proposal 1 kind of covers it. I understand what Holly's saying, but I just don't think that extra, historically, that's not a lot of people show up. And if they can show up on Sunday, they can probably show up on Saturday. And it saves our workers that extra day as well.
Yeah, again, maybe not. And clearly there's all sorts of constraints on staff, on financially, how often we can be open. You can't be open, all day, every day. So we're trying to find out what's a reasonable balance. Before the previous primary, we had a discussion about Sunday voting. At that point, one of the plans, in fact, I'm not sure if there was any Sunday on the original proposals that were offered to us, but all the Saturdays were offered, were suggested. We know that the last Saturday before election day is required by general statute, but we had a discussion and we ended up sort of trading one of the Saturdays for us of, what is that, 7 hours for 3 hours on a Sunday. It was a Sunday that was later in the time. That seemed to be workable as far as the schedule goes. As Ms. Dixon was talking about, that Sunday that we were looking at was later in the process, and so so the staff got that. The previous Saturday was the day that we traded for that. Because at that point, it seemed like we agreed that it was worth having that time available. And I didn't look these up, but what I think I remember is that, at least at one of the locations at the Southern Pine Center, the 3 hours of Sunday voting on that Sunday had a higher turnout than some of the previous full days. The station doesn't think so.
So the day before that Sunday was a higher, so we were already having higher turnout.
Right.
And then that was a high turnout for the 3 hours, yes. But like I said, it was the fact that a flyer information had been out to, gather people to come out. So, I mean, we
Sure.
were having higher turnout after the confusion of, there was some confusion about the building. I don't know why it got out that way. People thinking that we were not voting there, that we were going over to the Douglas Center. It was being announced. And so once the confusion and everybody finally realized that this is where we were at, the numbers started ticking.
Right.
So the day before that's the Sunday voting, that Friday and that Saturday, our numbers were up already for that total. And then that Sunday for the 3 hours, the numbers were up. And then that Monday, our numbers skyrocketed up even more throughout the rest of the week. But there was some confusion for that site.
Sure.
I don't know why.
Not surprising. Well,
And
I
I'm
think people are used
sorry
to going
about
to the
that.
Douglas Center.
Well,
For other
no, somebody,
It was misinformation that was given to the public
That's right.
through a radio announcement. That's what had happened.
and so that we were
And so
having.
we had to go back and correct the radio announcement that was given to the public because they gave out the wrong information.
And so nobody
Once that
was coming.
So nobody came to the site. They were going to Douglas Center and saying, where are we voting? And it was the wrong site. So once
right.
the information was corrected, everybody started going to WSP.
So
And that's
the
what
numbers
happened.
were-
And then
and
the
the
numbers
numbers
started
sorted.
to go up.
Really went up. And so,
So what, in my opinion, what Tawana is saying is that if, correct me if I'm wrong, we're back on Sundays. If Sunday is available, what needs to happen is the word needs to get out by flyers, by radio or whatever in order to get those numbers up. In Moore County is what she's talking about. Not all over, but in Moore County. And that's historically. So if people are willing to get out and get that information, I think our numbers would go out on Sunday, or go up on Sundays.
And I'm not sure if it is.
So, with that being said too, they're offering the first Sunday.
oh, go ahead. That's not what I was saying, but go ahead. I'm
Well, if
listening.
you're not saying that, that's okay, but that's what I'm hearing.
Oh, okay.
On that one Sunday that the proposal has is the first Sunday because we probably get more of a flow of people in because everything's getting started. You have the right sites. This is Antoinette now, and you're coming out on that Sunday.
And it's also,
And-
I'm sorry, you finish something. I know I would made the mistake of looking at my notes instead of you.
It's okay.
Please
You're the piggyback, it's all right. And the times, I think the times are different, correct? Because I can't quote times and stuff. But anyway, give those persons an opportunity to come out that first Sunday. Our staff is more prepared on that Sunday and they're more, they're not as tired. Is that what we're saying or no? But I think our numbers may increase on this Sunday regardless of what it is. If incorrect information is given out and people go to the right site, I am in favor of looking at our staff and maybe changing that Sunday because of how hard they're working. If it's in the beginning, it's a lot easier on our staff and for persons I believe to come in and work on that day too.
Yeah, so, and also, prior to that Sunday, the staff hasn't been, and all the other poll workers haven't been working an entire week before that. Early voting starts on the Thursday, so you've got a full day Thursday and Friday, then an 83 day on Saturday. Depending on what we end up with hours for Sunday, it's not, interminable stretch that was difficult in previous years. So I don't think, I'm sorry.
Excuse me. Are you proposing that we not be open on Saturday, the 26th?
I'm not proposing that. I'm saying
You
that that's,
mentioned giving up a Saturday.
I did. I said that just as historical, this board voted last time, it was important enough for us as a body to have Sunday voting that we were willing to give up the Saturday. And based on what Ms. Dixon has offered here, then that's, I'm not suggesting that. I like proposal 2 as far as having a Sunday voting day. As far as the hours, I don't know enough about demographics, about population movements, about voting habits to know whether 12 to 3, 2 to 5, 3 to 6, 8 to 6, what, you know, what's the magic number? I mean, I would be inclined to ask the staff what is, since we're asking them, in addition to a lot of other things that we're asking, to add that Sunday to the schedule, to turn it back to them based on either their preference, or when we think is going to be the most effective time slot. And I'm willing to go along with that because, and I don't think it's a bad thing to say in order to encourage people to come to vote on whatever day. We have to make a particular push and we have to publicize and we have to make flyers and whatever kind of attraction there is to get people to polls. I don't think that's a bad thing.
Well, based on what I'm hearing right now, and I see what Holly wants is the 6 hours on Sunday, and I can probably live with that. But I think we need to get rid of one of the Saturdays then. If we're gonna do a 6-hour Sunday, then let's drop one of the 7-hour Saturdays. Like you were talking about, we've done in the past. And if you're only giving them 3 hours, that's kind of a short period of time for people to come in, get set up and work 3 hours,
Yeah, I agree with that.
the 6 hours, but at the same time, that we don't need the Saturday, that we're already at 15 days of people being able to come in and early vote. If we keep the Saturday and the Sunday, now we got 16 days of early voting, election day 17, and absentee ballots. And I'm back to think, people have got to exercise a little personal responsibility, a little personal accountability here to vote. We just can't hand feed them, I'm
No,
sorry.
exactly. That we're working, I think we both agree with that. The question is, what's the right
So
balance?
it's almost like we look at proposal 3, or modified proposal 2, we expand it to 6 hours on Sunday, and then we determine, the staff maybe can come back and tell us which Saturday you think is the one we shouldn't do, and maybe which Sunday we should work. What's that exchange that you all think's best? And that still gives us the 15 days, but we exchange a Saturday for a Sunday.
If we were closed on the second Saturday, the 26th, then the staff would have a day break on that weekend.
So,
Oh, wait a minute, they're gonna have Sunday anyway.
That's a good 2 days, they're gonna need it.
No, that's too.
wait, no.
Wait a minute, so we're saying.
If you're saying close on Saturday, the second
The
Saturday.
second Saturday.
So you have Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday through Friday,
Yeah.
Saturday. I mean, that's,
And then Saturday.
they're still,
It's
yes,
like 9 straight days.
before they would have had, I mean, the proposal is stated has that Saturday in there. So that ends up being a.
But anyway, you look at, if you had a Sunday, they've still got like 9, 10 straight days. It
Agreed.
just
So
depends.
that's why I'm
They're
not
probably
sure.
fresher at the beginning for that 9 or 10 days than they are later.
That's why I'm starting to lean in.
That second Saturday
the
goes
second
away,
Saturday.
and then you do the first Sunday like you're talking about the 20th.
Okay, so let's see, in terms of, there was a motion that was seconded and we're discussing it. And so without getting too much into the Robert's
You don't
rules,
think we have
these,
You didn't have a-
We didn't have.
We didn't have.
We haven't had a motion
formally,
yet.
it just was a
have we
discussion.
not?
No,
No.
no,
It's only a
we've
discussion.
been discussing it the whole time. Only thing you did the motion was the Aberdeen
Oh, for
rec
that, that's
and
right, for
part
that.
of it, that's all. We're discussing the
I
time
stand
now.
corrected. Thank you very much. I promise I've been here the whole time. All right.
Yeah,
so
but
we're-
you took a vacation and you didn't get to go.
That's right. It was great. I'm gonna send you a postcard. Okay, back to, so now we're still
Would you like a
discussing.
motion?
I think.
I don't know
You
now.
want-
Okay.
I thought we said we were going to ask the staff to come back to us with what Saturday and Sunday they would prefer switching.
That was, again, that's not an agreement either. That was one possibility that
Discuss.
I suggested on this, on the Sunday hours. Now, Marty's proposal is, well, I haven't heard it yet. I think we probably are ready to have a proposal and if it's seconded, then we can have a discussion on that. And if it needs to be, amended. One thing to keep in mind is the time frame that the state board has given us, and is it May 5th?
So,
The 7th, okay, pretty soon, so it seems like, and without railroading anything through, it would be helpful if we could decide, and this issue, do we need to, does our early voting plan need to include, for every detail, including dates and hours?
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I
Submit
figured, so
everything all at one
Good thing
time.
to finish today, so, yes, ma'am.
So, I would hate to give up my Saturday. Can the Sunday be from 11 to 5, Ms. Holly?
I always thought 3 hours was too short because the whole hassle of setting up and opening, getting your poll workers there is a lot of trouble for 3 hours. So as many hours as we can do, especially if we're giving up a Saturday. I
But
think,
not to give up the
She doesn't.
Saturday
oh, not to.
and do 11 to 5 for Sunday.
I could live with that, I guess.
So when you say you don't want to give up your Saturday, you mean you don't want to miss that out as a voting day?
Correct.
She doesn't want to give Saturday up.
Because
Oh, I thought we were helping the staff. I guess.
Well, that's what we thought, but
it would be nice.
They're glaring at you now.
no.
No. Can we give them some feedback?
Can you do sign language?
Yes. Talk to us.
Hey, Marie,
Here's the
Anne
thing.
Marie and Annie, not Anne Marie and Annie,
Would I
the same
love an
person.
entire weekend off? Yes, but 9 times out,
We're here
We're still
anyway.
Yeah.
We're here working.
I'm
Doesn't
still
matter.
gonna be here working.
Okay.
I would prefer 11 to 5 so that my
Yes.
workers could get home for dinner
Mhm.
at a reasonable hour
Mhm.
on a Sunday.
Yeah.
But that would be my preference.
Easy.
So,
Do you want a motion?
And still use that first Sunday, correct?
And still
But
have it on the
just
first
that
Sunday?
one Sunday on the 1st, and then we still get the break, right?
What
Yeah.
break?
Yeah, we still get the break.
Yeah,
What
it's
break?
second Sunday.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the second
mhm.
Sunday.
Sunday,
Yeah,
Sunday
yeah.
off.
So it would be Sunday, the 20th. So I'm proposing that the schedule would be the same as proposal 2, but the Sunday on October 20th would be 11 to 5.
And I was saying that
That's a
motion.
clear one. So that was a motion, Yep, and there's a second. Is there any discussion? Okay. If not, all those in favor of that proposal?
Who's second?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I didn't see the second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Give somebody a second.
I thought Antoinette did, yes.
Did you get it? You got it? Okay, so now, and there's still no discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It passes. Thank you very much. Ms. Dixon, another director's report?
You gotta make a motion to amend the,
In the,
mhm.
Okay, I didn't know if you wanted to say something before that. So is there, in response to director's request, is there a motion needed, excuse me, is there a motion to amend the agenda to add this item on the issue that we had with votes reported at Carthage and Pinehurst P1 in the primary?
So moved.
second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Just we need, since it's a special meeting, in order to add something to the agenda, we need a motion.
Yes.
Which I should have said at the beginning. Now,
What are we doing?
What is it?
So, okay, so we had a gentleman who had called me to, he noticed that I didn't notice it. So he was doing a report on the primary with the election for numbers. And he was having me to look at it, and I could not tell what he was looking at with the numbers. But he came across the fact that on election day, the numbers for Carthage and the numbers for PHB1, they were inadvertently switched. So,
The election results?
yes, ma'am, the election results were switched. So, we looked into it because, like I said, I didn't notice it. He actually caught it when he was doing his report. We looked into it and we did find out that when we were uploading, well, what happened was when we did the upload, that the stick for Carthage actually was the stick for PHB1. They were in the wrong machine. And so when it got uploaded, when they voted on it, it went up that way. And so that's what happened. We notified the state, and the state was aware of it. And so I was waiting back to see what the state was going to say about the switching of the tally numbers. At that, they had already finalized their side of the election. It didn't throw everything balanced, like everybody got their vote totals. It didn't take away anybody's votes or anything of that nature. It didn't take away from the candidates' votes. Everybody got the right amount of votes. We were waiting for legal, and we hadn't heard back from legal when I spoke to the representative from the state. More than likely, they won't do anything because they had canvassed the election and everything was finished. But when he had found it, that was our course of action. We contacted the state, we let the state know, and we hadn't heard anything back from legal. And so now, we're putting things in place where going forward, it's like the precinct workers in signing the zero tape, usually we're saying, okay, when you sign that zero tape, it's for you to sign a zero tape to make sure that we didn't leave any data on there when we did our test. But now it's you sign in the zero tape to make sure that, yeah, we didn't leave any test results, but to make sure you sign the zero tape to make sure that when you look at the monitor, it is saying your precinct as well, because that should have been caught as well. We always, when we're loading everything, there isn't two people doing the job to check behind each other, but it didn't get caught. Like that's your last line of defense is your poll workers checking it and it didn't get caught as well. So now we're just putting things in place where they need to, when they're going to be signing a zero tape, basically saying it's a 3-point check, that they know there's no test results on there. They know that that machine should save their precinct because it's right there in the corner of the machine, and that they know that the time or whatever or something is on there verifying that information.
And this is going to be incorporated into training?
Yes, sir, incorporated into training.
So the tape said the correct precinct.
The wrong precinct, right?
Okay, so
Mhm.
the flash drive for Carthage was put into the Pinehurst B1 machine. So basically, whoever voted at B1, the tape said Carthage. Does that make sense? So all the numbers,
Yeah, I understand that nothing all the numbers are correct. They're just reported for the wrong precinct.
yes.
But the thumb drive is precinct specific?
No,
Yes, but
Well-
for this election, it was, everybody gets all the same ballots.
so it's the precinct, so our ballots are done by style, and because in this race, we only had the two styles. We had a Democrat,
Four.
What was, oh,
So everybody gets the same ballot. So it would have been caught if it was one where like a municipal, because there are two different Carthage and Pinehurst B1, or if like in a general, when the houses are different. So it would have been caught because it wouldn't have accepted that ballot. But because all the precincts had all four, they're all
all
of these
look
were
the same.
programmed the same.
yeah. That's why
It
I
just
took it.
says Carthage or Pinehurst B1. So it wasn't caught. I mean, they missed it on the screen. But like I said, it would have been caught as soon as, like during a municipal, when they tried to put the ballot in.
I'm still trying to figure out the thumb drive is or is not labeled with the precinct.
It is.
But they don't put it in. It's our, we put it in and we lock
I
it up.
put it in the wrong machine.
Right. But when the tape's printed, it says, the one that, it says it
It
goes
says
with
the
the
one on
thumb
the flash
drive.
drive, yes, yes.
But the people were voting.
How did the man catch it?
What,
How did the person catch the mistake?
I mean, if it went through all of us and nobody caught it, how did he catch it?
He's a data guy. He's
Yeah.
checking everything.
I don't know how,
But don't you upload from the thumb drive?
yes.
And the thumb drive was identified that the voters were in the wrong place.
Yes.
I'm trying to,
Yeah, so,
I'm trying to track this.
yeah,
The
so,
only other
and see
way,
what uploaded from the flash drive matched the tape.
Yeah.
And
But
I
it
wasn't
was from
looking
the
at
wrong
the
precinct.
yeah, I wasn't looking at the precinct on the tape.
Yeah, okay.
I'm just putting in the flash drive and uploading the results.
Okay.
I think he was looking, I don't know what numbers he was comparing, so I can't speak, but he had a spreadsheet, I don't know. I don't know. So,
It could have had something about numbers of voters.
it probably had something to do with, you know.
the state board didn't catch it.
Carthage versus the registered number of voters in
Yeah,
B1
right.
or B2, whatever.
And there was a discrepancy. One voted too many, one voted didn't vote
Enough,
enough.
enough, so why did that?
Yeah.
And like I said, usually, like, if you do code by, and this is one thing I've always wanted to see, but we can't code that way. Like, it would be nice if you could code your early voting site by style and like your election day site by precinct. You could catch it that way, because then if they had a precinct specific ballot and it would try to go in there, it wouldn't have went in there. But the coding can't be split by style or by precinct. It has to be one or the other as well. And so by doing, and the reason why we do it by style, because in early voting, if you were to do it by precinct, that means you would have 26 ballots for laid, and I've done that. You don't want to do this. This is a lot of work. You would have, so for like this next general election, you have 3 House districts, and then Cameron is going to have an ABC election. So you think about it, with 26 precincts, 4 ballots each, that's a lot of ballots. They have to spread out in early voting, and that would be the only other way we could catch it. But by doing it by style, it was hard to catch it. But like I said, the spreadsheet, I looked at the spreadsheet, I was like, sir, I have no clue what you're looking at, because he looks at the numbers, and I mean, he caught it. My state board looked at it, and they looked at different numbers, and they didn't even catch it, but he caught it. And so that was basically what somebody from the state board said, that since it did not hinder or throw off the election, legal probably wouldn't say anything, because I haven't heard anything back when I've been in contact with the person from the state. But I did want the board to be made aware of what happened and what we were going to do, what we were going to put in place. It might be that during Canvas as well, we might look at the tapes itself looking at the report of each precinct and kind of do more of a comparison to make sure that we're looking at everything before we finalize. So that way we're matching the numbers a little bit more careful. Just some things that I'm running through my head to see what we can do better, so that won't happen in the future.
All right.
Murphy's Law.
Still,
I like that one.
all right, thanks very much for that explanation.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Is there anything else from the director or the staff? Thank you very much, public, for coming. Please come back. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And we are adjourned. Thank you.